Good morning, Jim Distortion here, doing a daily short from my son's bedroom because it's the only room in the house where the dog doesn't attack me or the child doesn't attack me or a member of my family needs my attention. I wanted to talk to you about triggers to bad behaviour, triggers to addiction, things that will cause you to revert to learned behaviour, really. If you're an addict or, you're an alcoholic or you have bad tendencies, all of which I've dabbled with, I suppose. I mean, I've never been an alcoholic, but I used to drink far too much. I've been involved in bad behaviour and I certainly was a drug addict. So basically what I'm trying to say to you is if you have those behaviours, you usually have a place where you feel comfortable doing those things, or triggers. Yeah, triggers are things that will set you back, which will make you revert to how you were. So what are the triggers? People, places, substances. So basically what you've got is a situation where you walk into a pub which you haven't been into for, say, 10 years. And the same people you used to take drugs with are all sat round. What's going to be your first reaction to that? My first reaction would be look for the dealer. And I think it genuinely would be. I have no interest in taking drugs anymore. I have no interest in wasting my life any more than I already have done with that. But sometimes there are cravings involved in that. The freedom, perceived freedom you get from narcotics, especially opiates, where you're not in your own mind, you're not concentrating on the direction of life. In fact, you're not concentrating on anything apart from trying to have a good time until everything goes wrong. So, the people that were around you, I think, are the most important one. You have a social group of friends, and that group dynamic is involved in, say, you've got a different set of friends in business than you have in your social life. So very rarely do you have, the same group of friends throughout the whole thing. Now, say in your personal life you're taking drugs or you're drinking to excess, then you're going to probably surround yourself with people that you enjoy doing those things with. The only trouble with that is then forevermore, those people will be associated with that substance or that drink or that behaviour. Addiction is hard to get out of because you get stuck in a cycle. So, for instance, taking cocaine to such an extent wasn't necessarily an everyday occurrence. What would happen is definitely on a Friday night, my first thoughts would be, all right, I need to go and see this guy, I need to go and talk to this guy, I need to go and do this. And in that conversation, then we would work out the plan for buying the drugs, taking the drugs, and then buying more later on when we'd run out. So those people were the things that made it possible, that facilitated that behaviour. Now, when I became clean, the first thing I had to do was separate myself from all of those people. So I literally moved out of the place I was in, moved area, for a little time I was homeless. So I had to move because I fucked up so badly that, I had to get out. So then basically that time where I became homeless wasn't by choice. I had massive debt arrears. I was in all kinds of trouble. I had people trying to find me. So in my addled brain, my only course of action was to go on the streets, which I did very briefly. I mean, we're talking a couple of months here. And that teaches you something, right? That cold, hard separation where you have no phone, yeah, and you have no base. You don't know where you're going to sleep at night. That was the worst for me, okay? But what it did do is it enabled me to cut all ties because no one could get hold of me. No one knew where I was. No one really knew what was happening. So that separation was the start of things. Obviously, I was still taking drugs then because it wasn't the best of times. But then when I got sick and then I got a flat, I made sure that the only people who knew where I were people who weren't involved in that life, who weren't involved in taking drugs, who weren't involved in the selling of drugs. They weren't really involved in the partying scene that I was in. And I had kept that going until I was sure-footed enough to make sure that I didn't revert. Now, it's 10 years, I think, now that I've been clean and sober. And I have subsequently seen some of these people. And I do know that these feelings are regained by seeing the people. Obviously, I haven't, fallen off the wagon or anything. But I think you need to be aware that all behaviour problems, alcohol, drugs, violence, gang mentality, they're all drawn by peer group pressure, even if the initial decision to start doing that wasn't peer group pressure, it was down to you. You know, then after that, you know, I became this party idiot, you know, who would always have drugs, who would always be, you know, the provider, literally, sadly, of these things. Somebody who would, you know, somebody who would want to drink, want to take more drugs than anybody else, just to prove that I was somebody. Basically, there's a vacuous hole inside of me somewhere that needs filling. And it's now filled with work and family and different things. But I'm still the same person, but I have different goals. And those goals have changed because I've changed my social circle. You know, strangely, you know, there are a couple of people who were very much part of that drug taking, but they weren't part of the spiral out of control. You know, some of them were actually part of the you know, the support network. You know, like Alex, who's the bass player in my band, we're still friends now. We share a workshop and all of that. You know, we used to drink heavily together and, you know, do all these things, but he isn't a trigger. So there must be some people who you feel are supporting you for the wrong reasons. And believe me, once you cut those ties, they all disappear. They don't come looking for you. Yeah, they don't want to be around you for you. They want to be around you for what they can get. And there's a lot of people like that. If you're in a violent situation where you go to the boozer every Friday night, you get tanked up and then you end up having a row because it makes you feel like a big man, that is the same. It's the same game. And you won't be insular about that. There will be people on your shoulder chittering at you, going, oh yeah, come on, let's go and do that. Did he really say that? Come on, let's deal with it. Same game. Those people aren't there to support you. They're there for, you know, for the kicks. To get you into trouble, probably, because they know you've got a short fuse. And I had people around me doing that all the time because I behaved very badly. And yeah, I don't really have regrets. You know, that was part of a life that I was living, and that's fair enough. Bullying is not something I'm into. Do you know what I mean? It was never pick on the little guy. It was usually find the biggest guy in the room who's, you know, bigger than me, who's being a dick, and try and end it for him. I think that you have to be very careful with whatever you're doing, even if you're not addicted to anything, even if you know, you're a recreational user and you can start and stop. What are the triggers for that? What makes you suddenly go, do you know what? I need a line of coke to make my life better. Well, I'll tell you what the triggers are for that. Nobody thinks that way. They just think, oh, you know what? I'll have a line and we'll have a laugh. Right? That's how it starts. And that's great. And if you can carry on doing that, then why not? You know, obviously, I'm not saying go and take drugs. What I'm saying to you is not all people who take drugs are addicted. Not all people will have problems. I know plenty of people who can do things recreationally. I even know a city trader in London who is a Lloyd's of London name, who has functioned for the last 15 years as a heroin addict. Because, one, he can afford to buy the best drugs there are, so he doesn't have to worry about overdosing and not knowing how strong it is. Two, he functions. He has rules. Yeah, so he shoots up when he needs to, he does what he's got to do, and then he functions. He hasn't put a foot wrong in all this time, and I don't see he was. Very few and far between are these people. Everyone will tell you on the start of their drug journey or alcohol journey, it's all right, I can deal with it, it's not a problem, I can stop anytime I want. Yeah, well, make sure you can, yeah? Actually do that. Actually stop for 3 or 4 months. Because, yeah, you can stop for a week. You can probably stop for 2 or 3 weeks. But once you get past that first month and you've had that clarity of head, you know, most substances take between 36 hours, yeah, and 2 weeks to come out of your system. Once you've got them out of your system, then you have to deal with the mental triggers, which are sights, smells, people, you know, talking at you, influence. Once you've got rid of all of those things, then you can stay clean. So now I have actually been in a room of people who were all snorting coke off mirrors. And I put myself in that position to see what I would do. And you know what? I actually thought, oh my God, you're going to regret that tomorrow. And I just couldn't, you know, the come downs were the worst thing for me. When you're, you know, the next day, you're coming down, your emotions are everywhere. The day after, normally, it usually skips a day. Then, you know, you're just tired the day after. But then, so that's what normally happens. You feel so bad that you just want to start again. So what I'm saying to you is, if you find yourself in a problem, You know, even if it's not a problem, but have a look around you. If you're going to start taking drugs, or you're going to drink heavily, or you're going to do that, where is it? If you're drinking heavily and you're on your own, yeah, and that's happening, then you need to look at your mental health. Yeah, you need to go and talk to somebody. Phone the Samaritans, phone Alcoholics Anonymous, phone somebody you can trust to talk to, because there's a problem. Yeah, that's not about enjoying drinking. That's about the fact that you're drinking for the wrong reasons, I would say. So, you know, maybe you just enjoy it. But, you know, if there's no social interaction, you're drinking on your own, maybe question that. If you're insular, doing anything, taking drugs, you know, drinking, binge eating food, that's the other thing as well. You know, food is an issue with me. Obviously, I'm overweight male, you know, that's what I do, but I'm insulin world, I'm trying to get rid of it. If you're in any of these behaviours and you find yourself on your own doing them to, you know, to a degree that is above whatever's considered normal, talk to somebody, because you have a problem. All right, I'm going to leave you because it's been a long one this morning. If you want to, please subscribe down there, and then watch one of the past videos up there. Tell your friends. Let everyone know that I do these every day. Thank you.